Hi all, I'm Cullen Haynes and welcome to Lawyer Lending Live. Wanting to switch gears a little bit this time, I've got an absolute behemoth of finance I'm wanting to bring you. Needs no introduction, over 30 years in both car finance and now 25 years running her own commercial and residential finance business, Astute Ability Group. Could you please make very welcome the incomparable Mhairi McLeod. Mhairi, how are you today? And thank you for being on the show.
I'm good, thanks. It's great to be here. Obviously, it's a privilege to be interviewed by you. You've interviewed some amazing industry veterans, whatever you want to call them, and also the new to entry brokers. So thank you for having me on today.
It's an absolute pleasure. And I think this is going to be quite exciting because usually people would have to interview me to get the insights on the broken world, but it's so refreshing to have one of my kindred spirits in the finance world and able to get your wealth of knowledge in the industry of what you're seeing at the moment. And we've got a big calendar which we'll go through, but I would encourage people, it is now 4:02 in Sydney on Wednesday, the 19th of April. If you have any burning questions for Mhairi, please put them in the comments. We're live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and we'll be releasing the podcast later on. But starting off there, Mhairi, what is happening in your circle of influence right now?
Oh, there's plenty happening. This is a wonderful space to be in right now. Challenging, but it's certainly not for the faint-hearted. So as a broker that's been here for 25 years, connection is really important at the moment. Super important, whether you're a new entry or been here for a long time. So I think what I'm seeing is a little bit more of collective warm fuzzies, which is really good.
I love what you're saying because if for those of you who don't know, Mhairi's an award-winning broker with an award-winning firm, multiple awards, Broker of the Year, if I'm not mistaken, for 2022. So I think it's a testament to the fact, and I've listened to many of your speeches, it's all about connection and relationships. And I think what you do, we were just talking offline, that 71% of new to bank business is originated through brokers. And when you started, when you left the car world, you said it was about 15%. So you were really starting from scratch, as it were. I'd love to tease a little bit more about your journey and how you've seen it evolve.
Oh, it's definitely evolved in many ways. Professionally, it's evolved to new heights from 25 years ago. When I came out of the car yards, I was working off car yards floor plans to sell to my clients. And then I was door knocking, thanks to ANZ, thanks very much, they let me in, at Macquarie Bank. So I had 2 accreditations and worked off dealer floor plans to get my equipment commercial business running. And then obviously as the industry evolved, there became aggregators. There were some aggregators in that space, but it wasn't readily available or known. The knowledge that you gain along the way is through your peers, which is really important. And what I've seen since starting, they weren't big sharers when I started, and obviously being quite young and being female, the attitude was, what would you know? So I certainly proved them wrong after a few years. But what I knew was that I needed to make these individuals connect with what I was trying to achieve. And along the way, I had some amazing businessmen help me on that journey. So whether it be through aggregation or lenders or BDMs, I can't thank them enough. And quite a few of them are still in my circle of business associates, which is great because they're now at the retirement end. And it's very nice to hear the praises from them as well. But I think going from being new in the industry, not having too many people wanting to help me, seeing what is available now for not only new to entry but existing brokers, I think we have come a long way in the fact that we do talk to one another. We do want to see one another succeed, which is just, it's a far cry from what it was 25 years ago.
No, I love that. And I'm ex-Macquarie, so I know some of those names, maybe Andrew Sidery, Jamie Stenhouse,
Yes.
Colin Dell. Yes, all fantastic. I don't want to put them at the retirement age, but they certainly are living legends.
They're a little bit older than me.
Oh no. Yeah, so they're 31, 32. So there you go. But going back even further, not many people know this. You are actually a psychology major from your studies,
No, I
right?
started studying psychology. I didn't finish the degree. I started studying psychology, and I was working for shared mental health at Hornsby Hospital. And unfortunately, it really wasn't engaging or invigorating enough for me. And someone said I should get into sales, and I thought, oh, I'll give it a shot. So I got thrown right into the deep end, into dealership land, and I became group manager by the time I was 21 and a half. And
Yes.
I had 5 business managers under me working
Wow.
their multi-franchise dealership floor plan. So that's where my finance career started. It was certainly it was an eye-opener, and it was character building starting in
Yes.
that space. But it obviously built enough character for me to go, you know what, this is something I can achieve with a little bit more hard work and more backing of my own abilities. I think you've got to be able to back yourself to make the big leap to becoming self-employed too.
It's a good point you make there. I think when the odds are stacked against you, it's hard to find that inspiration and whatnot, but you just have to dig in. And we'll talk about that in terms of finding like-minded people, like you were talking about with Andrew and the people and the things in terms of what's available. But where does your drive come from? Where does that ability to want to just grab opportunity, shake it, and not let go? Where does that come from?
You know what? I'm quite a business person that wants to share knowledge. I don't think by holding everything to yourself and not sharing the knowledge and expecting someone to share their knowledge works. You need to share knowledge. And I think by sharing amongst your peers, talking to your clients, understanding where you want to end up and where your clients need to end up, you have to be in a collective group that want to share. And that's how you learn. So I think for me, the more I'm learning for new entry brokers. I'm mentoring one young gentleman at the moment, and you know, his insight and the way he sees things sends new light bulb moments up for me. And all the guys and girls that have been in the industry for a long time, they've got new ways of doing things. So I don't have a problem picking up the phone to a broker in Brisbane or Melbourne or what have you and say, hey, you know what are you doing in this space when it comes to a DocuSign? Are you using PandaDoc? Are you using DocuSign? You know, what technologies are you using? What are you embracing? So I think for me, it's learning, and it's the new ways to do things. And the velocity of change that happened during the pandemic, that was an exciting time, also a tough time, because we had to pivot. We had to really think quick on our feet, how we were going to keep our businesses afloat, what it looked like if we couldn't go and visit clients, couldn't get signatures, all those sorts of things. So those periods of times where we think it's really tough, and it is, don't get me wrong, you come out the other side going, wow, look how my business has changed.
Correct. At that time, I wouldn't have put it on LinkedIn, but COVID was the best thing that happened to the broking world, in my opinion, because it meant that everyone had to evolve. Previously, I was flying to, in my worst week, Perth, Brisbane, Adelaide, Melbourne, just to see people face to face because we're a national firm like yours. And it just, like, I think we've saved so much in flights and been able to connect with much more people because we were able to go, you know what? Digitally meeting someone face to face and getting them to sign the DocuSign is good. And it should be allowed to be done rather than the old archaic. You have to meet them face to face to prove that they're a person. I think we've evolved far from that. And you can impact change. Yes.
Some of the lenders.
No, it's a good point. It's a good point.
So
they're still a bit slow on the uptake.
I'm not going to call out the lender, but
no, let's not call out the lender. But
the comment was, you know, by doing face-to-face, we're eliminating and reducing the fraud. I think technology has evolved beyond that.
Come on, guys.
The fraud is far more detected digitally than it is face-to-face, clearly. So I think there's some old school ways of thinking. But when you say that was the best thing that ever happened to brokers, I think brokers still have to be mindful that we're in for a little bit of a rocky ride.
Oh, yes.
Definitely. And the order takers that were just there doing orders, they're not going to survive because they haven't built the rapport or built what they need to around their customer bases. They've just taken orders and done it. Now that things are tightening up and they really have to do a lot more research, we now are going to probably consolidate more, but we also have to look at those of us who went through GFC. That was tough too, but remember, we had the best 10 years after that. In our industry, we had a really good 10 years.
It's a good point that you make about that, I must say. It's that I think JFK said in the Chinese character for crisis, there's always two characters. It's made up of two characters. There's one for danger, but the other one is opportunity. And I think it's important that we realize that there's opportunity here as well. Yes, it'll be hard, but I think if you strategize well and you put the client at the center, relationship focus, and not be those farmers or order takers who just write the loans, because they're the ones at risk. And we'll talk about this very soon. The banks have said, do not lose clients. And now brokers are pitting against other brokers. And if you don't have a great relationship and you haven't been calling your clients every 6 to 12 months, they're going to go to the people or the bank that will. So it's really important, that whole retention piece. And I think we're in for an interesting time with the record number of fixed rates coming off. I think there's 50% of fixed rates coming off in September, 888,000 mortgages, and over 370 billion with a B coming off fixed rates. Love to get your take on what we're in for retention-wise and the experience for both clients and brokers there, Mhairi.
I think brokers have to also understand their own resilient piece as well, because we're not going to be able to help all of them, because there is going to be a bit of a handcuffing moment for a few people. So I've taken the strategy of, okay, I'm not going to be able to move everybody. I'm not going to be able to assist due to circumstance. So if you look at the first home buyer who borrowed maximum amount, double income, they've gone from having no children to now having 2 children, and they're coming off a 2.99 up to who knows where on one income. We have to take stock and go, you know what, this is all about how you spend your money. We may not be able to help you now. Let's put plans in place. So if you become the trusted advisor, it's not necessarily doing the deal today or doing a deal in a month. What it is how we focus on getting to the customers where they need to be. You don't want them selling up if it's unnecessary, if it's just about budgeting, and it's about holding their breath for a little bit.
That's a good point that you make, I must say. And for those tuning in, there's lawyers, professionals, and both yours and my network checking in, and there's a few people coming in. Mortgage prison is a real thing. And there's 2 ways you can find yourself in mortgage prison. Either you don't service for the loan that you once did, and you're not even asking for more. It's just the same because the buffers have gone up. The lending buffers have gone from 5 to 7.5 to 8%. But also for those lawyers who borrowed at 90%, which we helped a lot of, their value of their property may not be what it once was. So your value of your home is no longer there. So no other bank will take you. And that is a very real conversation I'm having with clients on both sides. And I'm sure you're finding that as well.
Yeah.
There, Mhairi.
So again, the brokers have to understand it's not their inability to do a deal. It's about the ability of your skill set to reposition your client in the way they're thinking. So I think that's key to what's going to happen in the next 18 months to 2 years. You may find some of those clients are stuck for that period of time, and some of them may have to move out of their houses and rent them. It's not a bad thing to say, well, look, I'm actually going to move home with mum and dad if you're first home buyers that are struggling a little bit because you've now got two little babies under the age of 3 or 4. So I think bringing it back to reality, this is only a moment in time. Things will settle down. And unfortunately, we've seen a whole generation of customers that have not experienced rates like this. Like, I remember my first mortgage was at 11%.
That's like a personal loan level. My goodness.
But you've got to bear in mind that the amount being borrowed at that time was a lot less because
Yes, it was a shilling and a
Yes.
song back in the day, huh? Yes.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, these clients have never seen rate increases like we've had. So it's now just reprogramming them and giving them more education and knowledge around what banks are looking for, what banks' expectations are. It's not that they're not a worthy client. And that's quite often what a client will say to me, oh, so the bank doesn't think I'm worthy. Well, no. That's not correct. The bank has guidelines and has tightened up. Things will change. But for the meantime, this is what we have to do to get you to this position. So
it's a good point you make there.
It's an education piece to the client.
Yeah. And I always say the character piece, they're nothing against you. It's a very transactional model at the banks now. So it's computer says no, yes, no. And a lot of the time, if the circumstances have changed, it would be no. But obviously talk to an advocate like yourself to get that. Shifa, one of my legal professionals and an advocate in her own right on the law side, says they need lessons from you and I there, Mhairi. And she said, lot less and cheaper plus fuel plus cheaper food, so different times and different demographics. You're making some good points there, Shifa. Now, this is a great question, and I sometimes ask it for my guests on the show. I wanted to ask you, Mhairi, when someone asks you, what do you do? What do you tell them? And I have a feeling that your children used to ask this question of you back in the day.
Oh, you know, when you go to school events and the kids are asked to explain what mum does for a living, what dad does, and, you know, asking about family situations. So I remember going to a parent-teacher thing and one of the teachers said, oh, your son said you sell money. I said, oh, well, that's a concept. So my son at the time was in about year 5. And obviously, well, you know, mummy's not an office worker or anything like that. Mummy sells money. So to keep it simple, I suppose I do sell money. But the other fact, I think if you're talking to an adult, what I do is I actually... I'm an advisor to financial needs and wants, but in my children's eyes, I sell money. But they're no longer children. They're 20 and 17 now, so they're probably looking at me as a walking ATM rather than selling money.
I love that. I love that. And we were talking off air that those that say, you know, I put dreams in driveways, they're talking about cars, I put people in their dreams. That's true to an extent, but at the end of the day, it's that trusted advisor piece, which is more important than ethereal dreams and getting in there. What is you've won a few awards for your social impact, inclusion, diversity, and making a difference. How important is giving to you, Mhairi, and your company?
You know what? I spoke about this back at National Finance Broker Day last year, and the same question was asked. You know, what impact does it have on my business? What impact does it have with my clients? So here's the thing: we can all give money. That's great. Okay, we can. You know, that's the easy part. What the hard part is giving your time, your knowledge, and your experience. So for me, I think the giving piece is really important. Getting into your own local communities, getting into your own, into our broker community, giving back your time, I think is far more valuable than just handing over a donation or handing over, you know, some of us can afford X amount, some of us not so much or what have you. That's great that charities need it. But I think ultimately the community needs your time. So, and when brokers say, Mhairi, your education program you wrote to put into schools, etc., how is that going to benefit my business? And I sometimes really struggle with, how can't you see how this is going to benefit your business? So you know what? That's your future generation.
Correct. That's the future leaders. That's the people that are going to need lending. That's why CBA market their Dolomite program, because they know that you save in kindergarten, you're probably going to need a credit card, then you're probably going to need, wait for it, a home.
Okay, I'll give you an example. So I spoke at Cobham Juvenile Justice a few years ago, and I took a group of young men, young offenders doing anywhere from 12 months to 24-month jail terms. And I spoke to them for over an hour and a half around what it meant to look after yourself financially, be financially well. Because if you're not financially well, mentally and everything else falls apart. So during that conversation with some of those young men, one of them said, "Oh, I'm unemployable." I said, "Well, you need to back yourself. You are given a second chance because you're under the age of 18. You have a second chance. You have the ability to make something of yourself. So if you understand your money concept, and it's not just about working for someone, why can't you be self-employed?" So I took them through the young entrepreneurs piece and spoke about, what do you like? Oh, I like being outdoors. I don't want to be inside. Well, have you thought of, doing some form of agricultural type of job, or running a business where you're doing outdoor maintenance? So anyway, running that piece. So when the point of that is, you know what, when you're giving back to the community, I'm not just talking to those in schools or juvenile justice. I'm also working with the social workers. I'm working with the teachers. I'm working with the fringe dwellers of my audience. And I never put out a business card. And they at the end of the presentation, they obviously know who I am and my website. And if they wish to get in contact, they can. I have got that much business from giving back my time into the community and working with various sectors. So for me, the sector that I like working is disadvantaged children. I also did a lot of work with Cowboys House in Townsville, and I saw their first cohort of Aboriginal men go through and do their HSC. And I spoke on financial literacy programs. And again, catering to the audience, a year 12 student from that sector is different to a year 12 student coming from a privileged background. So we made it tangible, and seeing the outcomes, I got invited to their graduation. Oh, I cried like a baby, because I thought, you know what? Out of the 14 young men, we got 6 of them through.
That's incredible.
Those sorts of things, with your time and your expertise, it does come back to you threefold.
So what I'm endeared by what you're saying is that piece around having someone there, volunteering your time, and maybe even being a mentor. How important is being a mentor in this market? Would that be your feedback to the industry at large, that put yourself out there if you're senior or privileged in your field, and actually give back and be a mentor to someone else?
Yeah, when I started it, I worked very hard on financial literacy programs that were endorsed by MFAA, etc. So I spent about 20 hours of my own time a week, whether it be creating the programs, going out speaking to the social workers, to work with the kids from PCYC or Indigenous groups or whoever. And then I allocated X amount of time every month, and I would book in high schools, or I'd book in PCYCs, and make it part of my business plan and my business growth. So then I started getting brokers asking me about it. How do I get into the community? So I would allocate 2 hours a week to speak to brokers about how to secure a high school, how to secure certain community groups. So again, I think it's really important. You can't just be an order taker. You can't just be, pushing product. You can't do it, because that's not a sustainable business. It might be for some to a point, but for me, I've been doing it 25 years, and I know I've got another 25 years, maybe.
Another 50 years. My goodness, please. And I want to say and put it out there, if you have just started in the industry, you've just started your business, you're a new broker, and I know it can be hard, feel free to reach out to myself, and I'm sure Mhairi would welcome a cheeky DM to meet for a coffee. Absolutely. Because
quite often I do get them inboxing me on LinkedIn, and I will schedule time to chat for, half hour, 45 minutes. And especially I've had a few business bankers give me a call about how to start up as a broker. So I give them, I'm sure you get that too. So I set them on the pathway on what they need, what they require, who to talk to, and do the research. You just can't come into this industry with no financial backing, because your income doesn't come through for 3 or 4 months.
Yeah, correct. And when we started, similar to yourself, no one knew who we were when we started Legal Home Loans. We had no clients, no contacts. The banks gave us the worst accreditations available. You start on accredited, which is like 20 business days. But it takes a bit of time, and it's like that, pushing that, boulder up the hill. Eventually, it goes down and it gets easier. Now we're platinum brokers and things are a lot easier, but I never forget. I'll never forget the BDMs and people that spent time with me and invested in me in the early days in our company, because they are now my leading lending partners. Shout out to Naveen Mhairi from Westpac, by the way, who invested time when no one knew us and no one wanted to deal with us. That one person helped us and to where we are now, gave us our start.
And I think that's key, not only to new entry brokers, but to existing brokers and long-term brokers. Your BDMs are your best friends. And if for whatever reason there's a personality clash with the BDM that you've been allocated, don't fear asking for a different BDM. It just doesn't work. It might be a culture.
We've done that.
It might be what have you. I've done it. And you know what? It saves space for the BDM that you're not really connecting with, and it also allows you to grow your business with that lender. So again, that's another key point. As you say, starting out, you do get the shitty accreditations, you do get the lead times and SLAs, but you also can manage the expectation of your client to knowing that.
Great points that you make, and I would say definitely reach out. And you're most active on LinkedIn, or which platform do you like to?
Oh, I love LinkedIn. Yeah. I love LinkedIn. I mean, I'm very easy to find. So email me, LinkedIn. But yeah, LinkedIn's really good for quick conversations to book things in, which is great.
Great. Now, I want to shift gears a little bit of a market snapshot. What are you seeing first on your commercial side of your business in the car equipment, technology land and finance?
Well, the technology piece evolved obviously during COVID, which is great, which we're getting away from wet signatures and more DocuSigns and how we collect documents. So that was a great piece. We hit a really low time where car manufacturing and equipment manufacturing coming into this country was low. We have cars, we still do have cars that are 12 months away. Some big pieces of equipment are 18 months away. Some manufacturing pieces of equipment out of Germany are 2 years away. So I've had to manage my workflow and cash flow, which is a bit of a challenge when you're doing 3 times the work, but the money's not landing in the bank because of, the orders that they're sitting there, the pipeline's growing. But what I'm seeing now is those who were waiting 12, 13 months for vehicles and equipment, they're reassessing things because their mortgages have gone up. Things are changed. So now they've gone from spending, say, 100 or 150 on a car or a piece of equipment, and they're pulling that back to under 100. Or Mr. and Mrs. Average aren't upgrading the car that has a residual due. We're redoing the residual and
you're refining the balloon payment.
Yes. So we're fiddling around with the market at the moment with the expectations of clients. So again, that's the velocity of change that we're working with. The market will start coming back. We're now starting to see a better flow of equipment and cars coming into the country. I deal with 80 car manufacturers, so they've all got different stages. But so I think again, it's still positive, but it's how you adjust and communicate, and the narrative. The narrative is a really big piece around what your clients are wanting. If they need to upgrade their car, but they don't want to spend as much as they originally thought, well, we look at what's important to them. Is it the badge? Is it features on the car? What is it? And we try and match them. So again, that velocity of change, you have to be a specialist in what you are marketing to, and you have to understand your market. It's really, really hard. I know brokers are being asked to move into diversification, but sometimes, guys, I think you need to stay in your lane. Because too much diversification can spell disaster for your client and your business. Because if you're a good mortgage broker, but you're hopeless at yellow goods for the farmer that you've done his big farm for, and you try and do a header and all this stuff and all the add-ons, and you stuff that, you're not going to get his big mortgage.
Correct.
You're going to lose the lot. So you need to partner with the right people until you've got that skill set. You can only really be good at 1 or 2 things, not 3, 4 or 5 things. That's my belief. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but
no, I highly,
in multiple fields.
No, no. Look, our legal professionals, our clients, they're specialists in what they do. Usually they've gone into a special area of law. That's what they're known for. That's what their brand is about. We only deal with lawyers. Yes, we do home, asset finance, commercial, but we know that. We know how to deal with that. And we've built up our niche. If you're wanting to be a mortgage broker, just stick to mortgage broking. And if you do want to add it as a option for your clients, there are plenty of white label options or partner with great companies that will do the work for you and still give the great service for you. Loan Options AI is a great option. My friend Julian Fayed has that company and they do a great job. So go out and speak to people like that if you want to do that.
Or even if you're a smaller broker and you've got a connection within the community. I deal with a lot of smaller mortgage brokers and some asset brokers that are still learning, and they'll give me deals that they're not sure about, or I'll walk them through it. So again, if you want to have a one-on-one relationship with someone like-minded or working in the same community as you are, but you're partnering, you can partner really, really well.
That's a good point. And always go into it and go, which clients can I give you? Because everyone's got a board in their office. Where are we getting all these clients? Oh, Jared's sending them to us. We've got to send something to Jared. I promise you, give. Then ask Gary Vaynerchuk. It'll always come back to you. And you're a testament to that as well there, Mhairi. You say, you give of your time, you give of your resources, and it always comes back.
Absolutely. And I think that's really important.
I think so too. Now, moving from the commercial asset finance side to now the residential land, which we all know 10 rate rises in the last 11 months, one hold. Now we've moved from 0.1 to 3.6% as a cash rate. The average variable rate is 5.5 to 6% plus. What are you seeing with the 370 billion in fixed rates coming off imminently? What do you think is going to happen for clients and the banks?
Lots of character building for mortgage brokers, character building for clients, the ability to be able to calm your client down. Sometimes it's short-term pain for long-term gain. So again, if the client has to move out of where they are, but they have to go into something a lot more expensive, and they're having meltdowns over it, it's an education piece, and we can always revisit it. One thing you've got to understand too is you don't want to be churning your client, because it is a stressful time. It's not what they do all the time. You want to be able to,
correct.
You need to go, right, well, you're going to be sitting, and also because it takes our time, we don't want clawback either. So we need to really position the clients well first. And if it is short term for 2 years, this is where you are, but this is our exit strategy. You've got to have an alternative for the clients that are having these meltdowns, and they are having meltdowns.
Correct. And also on the other side of the piece, just so to educate everyone, the banks pay mortgage brokers like Mhairi and myself. They pay for the loan to be originated. So you don't pay, it doesn't come out of your rate of repayments. But if you leave before 12 months, the bank claws back whatever they paid us, all of it. After 12 months, it's 50%. And after 24 months, it's nothing. So our real goal as a mortgage broker is to make sure you're serviced so you don't want to leave. Because if you do leave, it shows that you've either lost trust in us or the bank or whatever it is. Now, on the banker side of things, I've had very good authority within all the majors. They have told their retention teams and their bankers, do not lose clients. So it may be in the best interest for the client to move, but as soon as you send in your discharge, I'm just going to call it out there. There will be someone who rings you that says, hey, Joe, hey, Sally, why are you leaving us? And you'll say, oh, my broker can get me X rate and an X cash back down the road. The banks are giving that client usually the best rate that they can and a cash pay. What's your feedback to both clients and brokers when that kind of activity is happening, when there's all this time invested in getting the client to a better spot, but the bank didn't give something originally? Now they're coming at this last ditch attempt to kind of retain business.
Well, it's always the way, as soon as you throw the discharge in. So again, it's managing the expectation and the narrative at the very beginning. So we do let our clients know that this will be more than likely that's what's going to happen. The client's already tried to get a rate discount, or we've done a repricing. It's still not good enough. So, and then they come back and try and gazump you. So the thing is, you know what, I always say your broker is for life. It's not just for your home loan.
Exactly.
You know what? It's for all the other reasons you use a broker. You can actually talk to a human being. You can get an understanding. You get a broader view of different packages out there in this space. It's not one product. And unfortunately, and again, I'm not calling out any banks or any individuals.
No,
but sometimes
no.
a client can walk into a branch and you have someone who's not as experienced as a broker. We're far more experienced than a lot of bank managers. We've got far more qualifications than a lot of them too.
Yes,
so
yes.
I
know you've done lots of study. I've got an MBA for sure.
So maybe they're sitting in front of someone that's had 12 weeks training at a particular lender, and they're thrown into the guts and they're just gutsing every deal to pull them off brokers. Well, there's channel conflict. And I think as brokers, we need to call that out as well, because quite often if I've got the client at that bank and they're trying to nick it, pick up the phone to your BDM, pick up the phone to the state manager and go, this really isn't on. It's channel conflict and it's something that needs to be called out. Not, oh, well, I'll deal with that later. You call it out at the time. So again, the character building all round for the BDM, for the broker, for the customer and for the bank. But you know what? The end result is about your customer.
It's so true. It's so true. And at the end of the day, one of my good friends who's also state manager at the bank, I'll say his name, Mr. Michael Piper from CBA. He always says, Mr. Pipes, he's always, he said, yes, we may be the most expensive bank, and they are, but it's all about the experience. The turnaround is quick. The service at the end is great, and the app is market leading. So yes, Mrs. Client, you may be paying a little bit more, but think about what you're going to get. I've had clients that maybe we picked in my earlier days the best rate, but the experience was terrible. And if they just paid that little bit more, maybe that would have been a better experience. And the other thing I want to call out with you as well there, Mhairi, and most lawyers or good lawyers that I know also do this, you do not need to take on every client. Some clients are not for you. And I've actually done this with clients. I said, look, you're leaving your broker after 3 months and you left the bank before that after 6 months, and you've probably got 6 to 7K in cashbacks already. This is not for us. Maybe for another broker, go and see your local Aussie. I've used that verbiage because we do not want to take on clients that are going to leave us after 2 to 3 months. It's
well,
not
I call them cases. So I have a theory in my business. You know what? If your client's chasing rate, they're not chasing service, they're not chasing your expertise, they're not chasing trust, all of those things, and they're just chasing rate, off you go. Off you go.
All the best. And I always say, like for my legal professionals, the one that really value time, 31 hours it takes to do an application. If you want to do and invest that time over and over again, you're more than welcome to. But usually we're here for the life of the loan. We want clients to be happy with the choice, and the good brokers will review the rates every 12 months to make sure you're not overpaying. But that's a good little call out.
Sometimes it's a little bit hard if you're a new broker to the industry. You're chasing and you're wanting to satisfy everybody's whim. But there will come a time where you're dealing with a customer that's cost you money, and if you've had a little bit of an argy-bargy with them and you think, well, I really don't want this person on my books, but I need the money, you really need to think twice about that, because you could lose more clients than rather than getting one up front, because he's going to go and tell 5 of his mates, oh, this guy's an idiot, but I had to follow through and whatever, because he didn't get the rate. So you've got to be very mindful. What will that client bring to your business?
Correct.
You want your clients to bring you more business, referral business, repeat business. But if that client's bringing you nothing but heartache and aggravation every step of the way, I've actually cut customers off halfway through an approval and gone, oh, I can't deal with you. Because, it gets so out of, because there's certain things that are beyond our control. Certain SLAs are beyond our control. Discharges are beyond our control. And if you've got a client that's constantly barraging you with negativity and horrible comments, cut them off, because it's not going to get any better.
There's a way to do it. I used to work in my other life, be in hotels. I was a guest experience manager. And whenever we had a client that we've done everything for, my verbiage was always this: madam, it seems that we are unable to meet your expectation. We're happy to do what we can here, but you're more than welcome. We can give you a refund and you can go elsewhere. Not able to meet your expectation is a better way than saying, I can't deal with you. Yeah, all the best, and don't let the door hit you on the way out. But nonetheless, the last thing before I ask my final question is, what do you think about professionals that charge a mandate to use their service ahead of time?
I think it has its place, definitely has its place, especially for the more difficult deals. Okay, I do. There's certain places where I think it's going to be a little bit hard to compete with the average person able to walk into the bank and not being charged. But I think definitely for the more intense deals that need lots of work, lots of configurations, those people will see the value in what you do. So if they're not prepared to pay the mandate, they're not a client for you either. Because again,
Good
it comes
point.
back down to how much time you're putting into it. And they can't expect you to do a very convoluted scenario and at the end of it, oh, sorry, I'm not going ahead. There has to be some hurt money up front. I don't know whether I'm
You
allowed
have
to
some
say
skin in the
that,
game. No, it makes
there has
sense.
to be some hurt money up front because we're doing all the hurting, we're doing all the groundwork, and you can give some of that back once it settles. There's ways to navigate it, but there has to be a commitment fee for those far more complex deals. And I have no issues with doing that. And I have mandated more complex deals. And anyone that says, no, I'm not prepared to pay, well, you're not the type of client for me.
Good point. Good point. You know your worth and you know your company worth.
They will get the money back, depends on how I structure it. They'll get the money back at settlement. But if they're not, you don't want someone to ask you to do all this work and they're dragging the chain and drag it all out to the end. There's nothing. Not worth it.
Good point. Good point. And a final note to end our conversation there, Mhairi. When all is said and done, how would you, Mhairi McLeod, like to be remembered?
I'd like to leave a legacy behind in the way I view things with giving back. I think that's my legacy. We're all great brokers, we're all great people, all of those things. But what's your footprint? What have you left behind for your time in the industry? And I would like to think there's a legacy that I've left behind around education for young people coming in and being more collective in this space. So for me, I think it's a bit of a legacy around that piece, the community and the giving back, whether it be within our industry or outside of it.
You're already doing that there, Mhairi, and you're an advocate for elevation through education. And we are all far better for having known you. And anyone who, I think anyone who comes into interaction with you or hears you speak or is a client of yours is better for having known you. And what a way to leave a legacy. Be better for having known Mhairi.
Oh, thank you. That's lovely.
No, well, thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. LinkedIn is where people can find you, or is there any other channels you'd like to plug? That any other projects that people can find you or see that you're working on at the moment, Mhairi?
Oh, most of it's through the MFAA because I do partner with them on a lot of projects. So if there's any projects that the clients or your audience are working on that may fall into that giving piece, I'm happy to maybe have a roundtable discussion with them or just have a chat about what they're doing. It's not just about what's available through my channels, but what are you guys doing?
I think so. And I think there's a lot of lawyers, law firms, and people in my network who want to start that social impact stuff for their firm, but they're doing it in a tick box way. You're actually doing it with your personal time. So I think any HR managers, head of people, or anyone looking to add value at their firms, get in contact with this juggernaut because Mhairi's doing it the right way.
Thank you so much for that. That was a great shout out.
Thanks, Mhairi. Have a great day, everyone. And thanks for tuning in to Lawyer
Thanks,
Lending
everyone.
Live. Thanks, Mhairi.